My fiancé shocked me by asking for an open relationship right before our wedding, so I canceled the entire marriage and walked away without looking back. I'm 29, and I've been with Sarah, my fiancé, for 4 years. I thought we had it all. Perfect relationship, perfect timing, and a wedding just weeks away. I'm a firm believer in the idea that when you know, and I knew, without a doubt, that Sarah was the one. We had our ups and downs, sure, but who doesn't? What mattered was that we always came through it together. Or so I thought. We had been living together for 2 years in our little apartment in the city, and the wedding planning was going smoothly. Invitations were sent out, the venue was booked, and everything seemed to be falling into place perfectly. We were on the brink of the most important day of our lives. Our friends, our families, they were all excited. I had no reason to believe anything was wrong. Then, 2 nights ago, everything changed. The night started like any other. We were on the couch, eating takeout, talking about how stressed we were with the wedding preparations. But then, out of nowhere, Sarah went quiet. She stopped scrolling through her phone and looked at me, really looked at me, in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. It was like she was building up to something, and I could feel the tension in the air. I tried to lighten the mood. "What's up? You've been quiet for the last 10 minutes. Did I take the last spring roll or something?" She didn't laugh. Instead, she set her phone down and shifted toward me. "There's something I need to tell you," she said, voice almost trembling. I immediately sensed something was off. "What's going on, Sarah? You're scaring me." She took a deep breath and then she dropped the bomb. "I've been thinking a lot, and I think I want an open relationship." My stomach dropped. I couldn't process the words at first. I must have misheard her. "What?" "I mean, I love you, but I think I need to explore other things before we get married. Experience new things, meet new people. I've been feeling a bit constrained." Her voice faltered as if she was unsure how to say it, but the words kept coming. I sat there, frozen. The room felt like it was closing in on me. This couldn't be real. We were days away from our wedding. We had built a life together. How could she be saying this now, of all times? "Sarah, this isn't funny. Are you serious?" I was trying to keep my voice steady, but my hands were shaking. She nodded, looking down at her lap. "I don't know how to explain it. I just feel like I need to see what else is out there before I commit to forever with just one person. It doesn't mean I don't love you, it's just, I don't know, something I need." The air felt thick, like I couldn't breathe. My mind raced. This wasn't the person I thought I was marrying. I looked at her, trying to find some sign of the woman I had fallen in love with, but all I saw was someone I didn't recognize anymore. "I can't do this," I whispered. "I can't marry you. Not now, not ever." I stood up, the weight of the decision already sinking in, but I wasn't ready for what came next. Her eyes widened as if she hadn't expected me to react like that. "Wait, what? You're not even going to talk about it? You're just going to throw everything away?" I couldn't believe the audacity. Throw everything away? "Sarah, you just told me, days before our wedding, that you want to see other people. How am I supposed to respond to that?" "Sure, babe, go ahead and sleep around while we plan our honeymoon?" Her face flushed. "It's not like that. You're twisting my words. I don't want to have regrets later in life. I'm trying to be honest with you." Honest? Honest would have been telling me this years ago, not after we've sent out invitations and picked out centerpieces. My voice rose, and I didn't care if the neighbors heard. This wasn't some minor misunderstanding. She was dismantling our entire relationship right in front of me. She stood up, crossing her arms defensively. "So what? You're just going to end it? After everything we've been through? What choice are you giving me, Sarah?" I shot back. "How can I marry someone who isn't sure if I'm enough? You want to explore? Fine. But you don't get to do that while keeping me on the back burner like some safety net." She started to cry then, but I didn't feel sorry for her. "Not this time." "I wasn't trying to hurt you," she said between sobs. "I thought we could figure this out together." "Figure what out? How to let you cheat on me with my blessing?" I laughed bitterly. "No, Sarah, that's not how this works." Her crying shifted to anger. "You're being so dramatic. Plenty of couples have open relationships. It doesn't mean I don't love you." I shook my head, disgusted. Love isn't asking your partner to watch you flirt with someone else and call it healthy. Love is commitment, Sarah, and you clearly don't understand that. For a moment, we both just stood there, staring at each other, the weight of everything we'd built together crashing down around us. She broke the silence first. If you walk out that door, you're giving up on us. I grabbed my keys and turned to face her one last time. No, Sarah, you gave up on us the moment you decided I wasn't enough for you. And with that, I walked out. But the fallout was only just beginning. I drove aimlessly for hours after I left, trying to process everything. My phone was blowing up with texts and calls from Sarah. At first, they were apologetic. Can we just talk? I didn't mean to hurt you. But as I ignored her, they turned defensive. I can't believe you're acting like this. You're overreacting. Overreacting? She wanted to change the rules of our relationship days before our wedding and thought I'd just roll with it. My anger simmered, but beneath it was heartbreak. How had I not seen this coming? Had I missed the signs? Or was she always planning to spring this on me at the last minute? The next day, I woke up to even more chaos. Sarah had told her family that I had called off the wedding without warning. Her mom called me, furious, demanding to know what was going on. I told her the truth, every word of it. The line went silent for a moment, and then she sighed, almost as if she wasn't surprised. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'll take care of this. Apparently, Sarah's mom wasn't as supportive of her open relationship idea as Sarah had hoped. She tore into Sarah, telling her she was selfish and immature. But Sarah wasn't done. She turned to our friends, spinning some sob story about how I had abandoned her over a simple miscommunication. The backlash was immediate. I had mutual friends texting me things like, "How could you do this to Sarah? And don't you think you're overreacting?" I was livid. If they were so quick to take her side without hearing mine, they weren't real friends. I sent one text to our group chat. Ask Sarah what she told me 2 nights ago, then decide if you'd be okay with that in a marriage. One by one, the texts stopped coming. Sarah's lies unraveled quickly when people realized what had actually happened. A few even apologized to me. Others just went quiet, clearly too awkward to face me after jumping to conclusions. As for the wedding, I canceled everything. Venue, catering, photographer, all of it. I had to eat the deposits, but honestly, it was worth every penny. The idea of standing at that altar, knowing Sarah had doubts about committing to me, made me sick to my stomach. The last I heard, Sarah moved out of our apartment and back in with her parents. She's still telling anyone who'll listen that I overreacted and ruined everything. But I don't care. I'm done. It hurts, and I won't lie. There are moments when I miss the Sarah I thought I knew. But when someone shows you they don't value you, you believe them. I'd rather be alone than with someone who sees me as a placeholder while they explore. Now I'm focused on picking up the pieces and moving forward. It's not easy, but I know I made the right choice. I deserve someone who's all in, no doubts, no backup plans, and no open relationships. A few weeks passed, and I'd started to find some peace. But Sarah wasn't done with her games. I got a call from a mutual friend, let's call him Jake, telling me that Sarah had posted on social media about our breakup. She painted herself as the victim, saying I had cold feet and couldn't handle the pressures of commitment. She conveniently left out the part about wanting to explore other people right before our wedding. I wasn't about to engage in a public back and forth, but Jake convinced me to set the record straight. So, I made one post. I kept it short and to the point. For those asking why the wedding is off, Sarah asked for an open relationship a few days before we were supposed to get married. I ended things because I value trust and commitment in a relationship. That's all there is to it. The post went viral, at least within our social circle. The comment section was a mix of shock, support, and outrage at Sarah. Friends I hadn't spoken to in years reached out to check on me. A few mutual friends who had taken Sarah's side tried to apologize, but I wasn't interested in rebuilding bridges with people who'd so easily believed the worst about me. Meanwhile, Sarah's social media disappeared. Word got around that her parents had cut her off financially. Furious that she'd not only destroyed her engagement but also humiliated the family. A part of me felt bad. After all, I had once loved her. But I reminded myself that this was her doing, not mine. One day, as I was packing up the last of her things to return, I found an old photo album she'd put together for our first anniversary. It was filled with pictures of us smiling, laughing, planning our future. For a moment, I felt the weight of everything we'd lost. But then I turned the page and saw the card she'd written me back then. "Here's to forever. I can't wait to be your wife." Forever. What a joke. That night, I drove to her parents' house to drop off her belongings. Her mom answered the door, looking embarrassed. "I'm so sorry about everything," she said quietly. "You didn't deserve this." "I know," I replied. "Neither did she. She just doesn't realize it yet." As I drove away, I felt lighter, like I'd finally closed the chapter. It's been a few months since then, and I won't lie, it hasn't been easy. Weddings I was invited to remind me of what could have been. But I've started going to therapy, focusing on my career and reconnecting with friends. The experience taught me a hard lesson. Love without respect isn't love at all. In today's Reddit story, "You're not even worth the hospital bill. My wife scoffed after I nearly died in an accident. Why should I waste my money on you? I just stayed quiet until she was the one in the ER and her insurance was canceled." I don't remember much about the accident itself. One moment, I was driving home from work, exhausted after another 10-hour shift. The next, there was a blinding flash of headlights, the screech of brakes, and a deafening crash. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed, barely able to move. 3 fractured ribs, a dislocated shoulder, a nasty concussion that made everything spin. I was lucky to be alive. At least that's what the doctors said. But when my wife, Stephanie, walked into the room, she didn't exactly look relieved. I blinked up at her, still groggy from the painkillers. "Hey," I expected concern, maybe even a hug. Instead, she crossed her arms and sighed dramatically. "So, how long is this gonna take? Because I don't have time to play nurse, Alex." I frowned. "What?" She rolled her eyes. "Ugh, the bills, Alex. How much is this going to cost?" I couldn't even process what I was hearing. I had almost died, and all she cared about was money. The doctor walked in, holding a clipboard. "Mr. Carter, we'll need to keep you under observation for a couple of days. You're lucky. It could have been much worse." Stephanie scoffed. "Yeah, lucky." The doctor ignored her and turned to me. "Now, do you have your insurance details? We'll need to process." Stephanie cut him off. "Oh, he has insurance, but we're not paying extra for unnecessary crap." "Unnecessary?" She shrugged like this was no big deal. "I mean, come on, Alex, you're gonna heal. It's not like you're dying. Why should we waste money on stuff you don't really need?" The doctor glanced between us, visibly uncomfortable. Meanwhile, I was too stunned to speak. I was in a hospital bed, in pain, lucky to be alive. And my wife was nickel and diming my recovery, and then she dropped the final bombshell. "You're not even worth the hospital bill, Alex." She laughed, actually laughed, shaking her head like I was some kind of idiot. "Seriously, why should I waste my money on you?" I just stared at her. And in that moment, something inside me broke. I had been married to this woman for 3 years. 3 years of paying for everything, covering all the bills, spoiling her with gifts. I had always thought she loved me for me. But now, I realized she only ever saw me as a walking ATM. I could have yelled at her. I could have called her out for the cold-hearted snake she was. But I didn't. I just smiled. A small, tired, pain-filled smile. "You're right, Stephanie." She blinked. "Wait, what? You shouldn't waste your money on me." She looked pleased with herself. She thought I was finally getting it. What she didn't realize? I had just decided that she wasn't worth another second of my time. I lay there in that hospital bed, staring at the ceiling. My ribs ached, my shoulder throbbed, my head was spinning. But none of that compared to the gut-wrenching realization that the woman I had married never actually cared about me. She didn't love me. She loved what I provided, the house, the vacations, the financial security. But me? I was replaceable. And she had just said it out loud. "You're not even worth the hospital bill." That night, as Stephanie sat in the corner of the hospital room scrolling on her phone, I decided on something. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't fight. I wouldn't even call her out. Instead, I'd let her believe she had won. So the next morning, when she finally looked up from Instagram long enough to see I was awake, I forced a small, weak smile. "You were right, Stephanie. No point wasting money on unnecessary treatments." Her lips curled in satisfaction. "Good. Glad we're on the same page." She thought I had finally learned my place. She thought I was too weak to fight back. But what she didn't know, I had just decided that she was no longer my wife. When I was discharged from the hospital, Stephanie didn't even pick me up. She sent an Uber. I sat in the back seat, watching the city lights blur past. I felt the stitches in my side pull with every breath. My left arm was still in a sling. But none of that mattered. Because in my right hand, I held my phone, and I was about to make the most important calls of my life. I want a divorce. Understood? Do you want to start with a separation? No. I want a clean break. She gets nothing more than what's legally required. My lawyer was silent for a moment. This is about what happened in the hospital, isn't it? I exhaled sharply. She made it clear how she feels about me. Now I'm making it clear how I feel about her. Divorce process started. Stephanie had no idea. Let her keep scrolling through Instagram, thinking everything was fine. Stephanie was on my health insurance. I had put her on my premium plan when we got married because I wanted her to have the best coverage. That ends today. I need to remove my spouse from my health insurance plan, effective immediately. HR confirmed it would be processed within the week. She wouldn't know until she actually needed it. Over the next few days, I made subtle but crucial changes. All shared accounts, closed. All credit cards under my name, canceled. My direct deposit, sent to a separate account she didn't have access to. She wanted to treat me like I was worthless. Let's see how she liked it when I stopped funding her lifestyle. It took about a week before Stephanie noticed something was off. She came home one evening, shopping bags in hand, and flopped onto the couch. Hey Alex, my card got declined at Nordstrom today. What's up with that? I was sitting at the kitchen table, flipping through some paperwork. I didn't even look up. Oh. Yeah, I had to cancel that card. She sat up straight. Cancel? Why? Didn't think you'd need it anymore. Her brows furrowed. Well, I do. Reactivate it. I finally looked up at her. No. Her mouth fell open slightly. Excuse me? I leaned back in my chair studying her. You said I wasn't even worth a hospital bill, right? So why should I waste my money on you? Her face twisted in irritation. Oh my God, you're being so dramatic. That was just a joke. I just smiled. Yeah, funny joke, huh? And then I stood up, grabbed my keys, and walked out. She had no idea I was heading straight to my lawyer's office to finalize the divorce papers. The thing about Stephanie is that she had always taken my kindness for granted. She never even considered the idea that I could stop supporting her. That was her biggest mistake. For the next few weeks, I continued living my life as if nothing had changed. I still came home every evening. I still let her talk about her day, mostly online shopping and brunch. I still played the role of the quiet husband. But behind the scenes, the divorce papers were finalized. All our joint finances had been separated. Her health insurance, officially canceled. She had no idea that I was just waiting for her to crash and burn. A few weeks later, Stephanie started noticing things were off. It started with small inconveniences. She tried to order Uber Eats on my old credit card. It declined. She went to pay for a spa day. Her membership had been revoked. She found out the gas bill was unpaid because it was in her name now. And then she finally confronted me. Alex, why is all my stuff getting canceled? I looked up from my laptop, acting genuinely confused. What do you mean? I mean my credit card doesn't work. The bills are past due, and she hesitated, and my gym membership got revoked. What's going on? I shrugged. Oh, I just figured we should start being more careful with money. She rolled her eyes. You're acting like we're broke. We're fine. I smiled. I'm fine. The way her eyes flickered in confusion, priceless. What the hell is that supposed to mean? Just saying, I don't think I should waste my money on unnecessary things anymore. Her face twisted. You're still mad about the hospital bill? I just smiled and went back to my laptop. She huffed and stormed out. She still thought she could control me. She still thought I was playing some petty revenge game. She had no idea that I had already cut her off completely. A few weeks later, I got home to find Stephanie pacing the living room, phone in hand. She looked genuinely stressed. Alex, something's wrong. I dropped my keys on the counter. What now? She exhaled sharply. I just tried to refill my prescription at the pharmacy, and they said my insurance isn't active. I stared at her. And? She blinked. And, I need my medication, Alex. What happened to our plan? I tilted my head slightly. Oh, I had you removed from my insurance a while ago. Her jaw dropped. What? Why? I crossed my arms. Because you made it clear I wasn't worth wasting money on. She looked completely frozen. Alex, you can't be serious. I leaned in slightly. No, Stephanie, I've never been more serious in my life. For the first time since the hospital, she looked nervous. And I loved it. Over the next week, Stephanie's panic increased. She tried to book a dentist appointment, canceled. She tried to refill another prescription, denied. She tried to reactivate her insurance, found out she had to pay for it herself now. But the best part? She had no money. All those years of using my credit cards, spending my money, and relying on me? She never bothered saving anything. And now? She was completely helpless. But I wasn't done yet. Stephanie's entitlement kept her blind to reality. Even as she struggled to get basic things covered, even as her cards declined and her bills stacked up, even as her doctor refused to see her without insurance, she still thought she could win. She still believed I'd come crawling back. But then, she got a brutal wake-up call. I was at work when my phone started buzzing like crazy. Missed calls. Stephanie. Voicemails. New 3. My eyebrows lifted. She hadn't been this desperate since, well, ever. Curious. I let it buzz for a while before finally picking up. Stephanie. Her voice hit me like a train. Alex, oh my God, I'm at the ER. I need you. I'm in pain. I sat back in my chair. Oh, what happened? I don't know. It's my stomach. It hurts so bad they think it might be my appendix. I made a thoughtful noise. That sounds serious. It is. Alex, I need you to come. Now. Why? There was silence. She stammered. Because I need you to sign something. There it is. I tapped my fingers on my desk. Wait, why would I need to sign anything? Because I don't have insurance. I could barely contain my smirk. That's a problem. Alex, please. She was desperate now. They won't operate unless I pay up front. They're saying it could be thousands of dollars. Damn, that's rough. You're my husband, I sighed. Am I? She froze. I let the silence stretch before I spoke again. Stephanie, you made it clear that spending money on me was a waste. So tell me, why should I waste my money on you? I could hear her breathing hard. Alex, I didn't mean it. You did. There was nothing but silence on the line. Find another way, Stephanie. I'm done. And then, I hung up. For the next few days, I got updates from mutual friends. Stephanie had to call her parents, who refused to pay for her surgery. She had to take out a loan just to cover the hospital costs. She was drowning in debt overnight. And the best part? She now knew what it felt like to be seen as not worth the hospital bill. Poetic, isn't it? After I hung up on Stephanie that night, I expected some kind of desperate attempt to get me back on her side. And I was right. The first few days, dozens of calls, texts, and voicemails. After I blocked her number, she started calling from unknown numbers. When that didn't work, she showed up at my workplace. I was leaving the office one evening when I saw her leaning against my car. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, messy hair, barely put together, a look of complete desperation. Good. Now she knows what it feels like to be helpless. She straightened up when she saw me. Alex, thank God. I just want to talk. I didn't stop walking. I have nothing to say to you. She hurried after me, voice shaking. Alex, please. I lost everything. I was wrong, okay? I finally turned to face her. Wrong about what exactly? She swallowed hard. About what I said at the hospital. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, refresh my memory. What was it you said? Her lips trembled. I said you weren't worth the hospital bill. That. Alex, I didn't mean it. I held up a hand, cutting her off. No, Stephanie, you meant it. You meant every damn word. She went silent. And now, you're in the exact same position. But the difference? I leaned in slightly. I didn't abandon you. You abandoned me first. Her eyes welled with tears. Please, Alex, I have nothing. I'm drowning in debt. I tilted my head. Did you ever stop to think about what would have happened if the roles were reversed? She opened her mouth, then closed it, because we both knew the answer. I turned to walk away. She grabbed my arm. Please, Alex, just give me another chance. I looked down at her hand on my sleeve. You made your bed, Stephanie. Now lie in it. And then, I pulled my arm away and walked to my car. She stood there, shaking, watching me leave. The last thing I heard as I drove off, Alex, please. The divorce was finalized within the month. Stephanie was buried in hospital debt. She had to move back in with her parents, who weren't happy to have her. I was completely free. A few months later, I was out at dinner with some friends when someone brought up Stephanie. Hey, have you heard from your ex? I shrugged. Not really. Why? Oh. Oh, she's been telling people you ruined her life. I chuckled. No, she did that to herself. And honestly, I had never felt more at peace.
I came home from work to find my wife in bed with another man. You were never enough, she laughed. I just smiled, took my keys, and walked out. 3 months later, she called me screaming. I'm Aaron, 34M, and I've been married to my wife, Lisa, 32F, for 5 years. If you'd asked me a few months ago, I would have told you we were happy, stable, a solid couple. But in just one night, that illusion shattered. Because I walked into my own home and saw my wife in bed with another man. And when I confronted her, she laughed in my face. I got off work 3 hours early that day. It was a slow afternoon, and my boss had cut us loose early, saying, "Enjoy the time off." I remember that moment so vividly because I had actually smiled, thinking how nice it would be to spend the extra time with Lisa. I even considered stopping for food on the way home, maybe sushi, her favorite. Something nice to shake up the usual routine. I had no idea my life was about to fall apart before I even set foot in the house. The first thing that felt off was the front door. It wasn't wide open, but it also wasn't fully closed. Just barely ajar. Lisa and I were both careful about locking doors, so at first I figured maybe she had gone out for a quick errand and hadn't shut it all the way. Still, I walked inside quietly, scanning the entryway. Her purse was on the kitchen counter. Her shoes were by the door. She was home. Then I heard it. A low, breathy laugh, hers. And something else. A man's voice, muffled but unmistakably deep. My stomach dropped. I moved without thinking. My feet carried me down the hall, past the framed pictures of our wedding day, the vacations we had taken, the life we had built together. The bedroom door was cracked open. Inside, 2 silhouettes moved under the dim glow of the bedside lamp. I wish I could say I stormed in and made some dramatic, powerful speech. Or that I saw red, that I lost control, that I lashed out. But I didn't. I just stood there, frozen, watching my wife, my Lisa, straddling another man in our bed. The sheets I had laid in for years, the pillows that smelled like us, now tangled around someone who wasn't me. It didn't feel real. For a moment, I think I actually believed I was dreaming, that I'd wake up, shake off the nightmare, and everything would be normal again. Then Lisa turned her head, saw me standing there, and she smirked. Not guilt, not shock, smugness. And then came the words that would haunt me for months afterward. You were never enough, she said, breathless, laughing as she leaned into him. Like I was nothing, like I was a joke, like the 5 years we spent together, the love, the vows, the nights we lay awake talking about our future, meant absolutely nothing. I should have felt something. Rage, grief, heartbreak. But in that moment, something inside me just snapped. And instead of falling apart, instead of fighting, instead of yelling, I did something that seemed to catch them both completely off guard. I smiled. Lisa's smug expression faltered for a second. I could see it in her eyes, that tiny flicker of uncertainty. The way her confidence wavered when she realized I wasn't reacting the way she had expected me to. Her boy toy? He looked downright uncomfortable, shifting under the sheets, clearly wanting nothing to do with the confrontation. I didn't even look at him. I just pulled my house key off my keyring, tossed it onto the nightstand, and said, "You can keep the bed. I won't be needing it." Then I turned around and walked out. No yelling, no insults, no begging for explanations. I just left. And as I walked down the hallway, past the wedding photos, past the life we had built, I felt something I hadn't expected: relief. Because in that moment, I knew one thing for certain. Lisa had just made the biggest mistake of her life. And she was about to find out exactly what it meant to lose me. I didn't go back. Not that night. Not ever. When I walked out of that bedroom, I left behind everything. The home we built, the life we shared, and the woman I thought I knew. But what Lisa didn't realize in that moment, when she was still tangled up with her little boy toy, was that I wasn't just walking away. I was setting the stage for her downfall. She thought she had won. She had no idea what was coming. The first thing I did was make sure Lisa had no way to touch my money. We had one joint account, which we used mostly for bills and household expenses. But my salary, my real savings, that had always been in my own name. Still, I wasn't taking any chances. That same night, I parked at a diner, pulled out my laptop, and started locking everything down. Drained our joint account, left exactly half, just so she couldn't claim I stole from her. Changed all my banking passwords. Removed her as an authorized user on my credit cards. Set up alerts for any financial activity in our names. Then I checked our house title. It was in my name only. When we bought the house, Lisa had been between jobs, so I was the one who handled the mortgage. At the time, I hadn't thought anything of it, just another legal technicality. Now it was the best damn decision I had ever made. Because Lisa? She had zero claim to the property. By morning, I was sitting in a divorce lawyer's office. He was a sharp-looking guy in his 40s, the kind of attorney who specialized in high-stakes breakups. "So," he said, leaning back in his chair, "tell me everything." I did. Every detail. Finding them in bed, what she said, how I walked out without a fight. He whistled. "Damn, that's cold." I shrugged. "She thinks she won." His lips twitched into a smirk. "Well, let's make sure she realizes she didn't." We went over everything. Filing for divorce on grounds of infidelity with all supporting evidence. Keeping the house, since it was in my name alone, she had no claim, ensuring she got nothing, no spousal support, no financial safety net. "But," I added, "I don't want to serve her yet." The lawyer raised an eyebrow. "Why?" I leaned forward. "Because I want her to think she's winning. I want her to dig herself in so deep that when the papers hit, she has no way out." He grinned. "Now that's a man with a plan." For the next few weeks, I went completely silent. I didn't contact Lisa, didn't text, didn't even acknowledge she existed. And she didn't try to reach me either. At first that pissed me off, but then I realized she thought she had won. She probably told herself that I left because I was too much of a coward to fight, that I was off licking my wounds while she was playing house with her new man. Perfect. I wanted her to feel secure, comfortable, like she had successfully replaced me without any consequences. So I waited. And while I waited, I gathered every last piece of evidence I needed. I had bank statements showing where she had spent money on their little rendezvous. I had her text logs, not from her phone, but from our shared cell provider account. I had photos from my private investigator, proving beyond doubt that she had been cheating for months. When the time came, I wasn't just going to divorce her. I was going to completely destroy her. 3 weeks after I walked out, I got my final confirmation that Lisa was digging her own grave. A mutual friend, Sarah, reached out to me. "Hey," she texted. "I don't know if you want to hear this, but Lisa's been telling people you just left, that you had some kind of breakdown and disappeared." I stared at the message. I wasn't surprised, but still, it was a hell of a thing to hear. She wasn't just lying, she was rewriting history. She wanted to play the victim, make people think I had walked away because I couldn't handle a real relationship. That was the final push I needed. The next morning I called my lawyer. "It's time," I said. He chuckled. "Let's bury her." I didn't need to destroy Lisa. She was about to do it herself. For weeks she had lived in her fantasy world, playing house with her new guy, telling herself she had upgraded while rewriting the story so she could be the victim. That was fine. Because now she was about to wake up to reality. Lisa's downfall started with a simple trip to the grocery store. She went to pay for her cart full of overpriced organic nonsense, the kind of stuff she used to throw into the cart when I was the one swiping the card. Only this time, her debit card declined. She frowned, tried again, declined. She pulled out her credit card, declined. Then her phone buzzed, a notification from her bank. "Alert, your joint account balance is now $3.82. She stared at the screen, heart pounding. She had seen money in the account just 2 days ago. She had just assumed I wasn't touching it, that I was off licking my wounds somewhere. But no, I had taken my half, the part that was legally mine, and left her to fend for herself. Now she was broke. Lisa tried to text me, then call, then email. Each time she was met with nothing. Because she wasn't just locked out of the bank accounts, she was locked out of me. Her texts wouldn't deliver. Her calls went straight to voicemail, and that's when she knew. She wasn't just financially cut off. She was completely alone. With nowhere else to turn, Lisa went to her affair partner. I don't know exactly how the conversation went, but I can imagine it. I like to think it started with her frantic, maybe a little defensive. "Babe, you won't believe what Aaron did. He drained our account. He froze the credit cards. He's ignoring me. Maybe she thought he'd step up, that he'd tell her, "Don't worry, I got you, baby." Except he didn't. Because here's the thing about men like him. They don't stick around when things get hard. Lisa wasn't a catch anymore. She wasn't some forbidden prize he was sneaking around with behind my back. Now she was just baggage. And within days, he was gone. By the time the process server found her, she was already crumbling. She was sitting alone in the coffee shop where she used to brag to her friends about how much better her life was without me. She barely noticed the man approaching her table. "Lisa Parker?" She blinked up at him. "Yes?" The folder landed in front of her. "You've been served." She stared at it, hands trembling. The words, "Petition for dissolution of marriage," might as well have been written in blood. She flipped through the pages, scanning the details. Grounds for divorce: infidelity. No spousal support, no claim to the house, no access to shared assets. Her hands shook. Her little fantasy world had just gone up in flames. That night I got my first voicemail from Lisa in weeks. "Aaron, we need to talk. This isn't right. You can't just cut me off like this. We're married. We built a life together. You don't just throw that away." I smiled, because funny enough, that was exactly what she had done. Thrown me away. Now it was her turn to feel what that was like. A week later, another voicemail. This time, her voice cracked. "Aaron, please, I know I messed up. I was stupid. I don't know what I was thinking. I thought I wanted something else, but I was wrong. I miss you. I miss us. Please just call me back." No. Because Lisa wasn't sorry she cheated. She was sorry she lost. A few days later, I got a text from a mutual friend. "Lisa's been asking around about where you're living now." Interesting. I wasn't hiding, but I wasn't waiting for her either, and she was about to find out exactly why. Lisa thought she could fix this. At least, that's what I gathered from the constant calls, texts, and voicemails she had been leaving for the past 2 weeks. At first, she was angry, furious that I had locked her out, taken my half of the money, and left her with nothing. Then, when she realized her new man had ghosted her, the anger turned to desperation. Now, she was clinging to whatever hope she had left. And she was about to learn that there was nothing left to hold on to. One night, I got a text from an unknown number. "Lisa, hey, please don't ignore me. Can we meet? Just for coffee? No fighting, no drama. I need to see you." I stared at the message. She wasn't demanding anymore. She wasn't blaming me. She was pleading. That was new. I didn't reply immediately. I let her sit with the uncertainty. Then 2 hours later, I sent back one word. "Why?" Her reply came almost instantly. "Lisa, I just need closure." Closure. She thought this was her moment. She thought if she could just see me one more time, say the right words, cry at the right moment, maybe I'd let her back in. That wasn't going to happen. But I agreed. Because I wanted to see just how broken she had become. We met at a small cafe downtown. The kind of place we used to go together back when things were good. When I walked in, I spotted her immediately. And for the first time in months, I felt absolutely nothing. She looked different. Not physically. She was still the same Lisa. But she looked tired, hollow, like someone who had finally realized they had gambled away everything and lost. I sat down across from her. Didn't say a word. She exhaled shakily. "Thanks for coming." I nodded. "What do you want?" She winced. "Aaron, can we just talk?" I tilted my head. "Talk about what, exactly?" Her hands gripped the coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. I know I screwed up. I didn't respond. Just let her keep talking. I thought I wanted something different. She swallowed hard. "I thought you'd always be there, that no matter what, you'd still love me." She blinked rapidly. She was trying not to cry. "But you're not, are you?" I leaned back. "No." Her breath hitched. "Aaron, please. I miss you. I miss us. I just want another chance." And that's when I ended it for good. I let the silence stretch for a long moment. Then, slowly, I pulled out my phone, turned the screen toward her, and let her see the picture. It was me, with someone else. A beautiful woman sitting beside me, laughing, her hand resting comfortably on my knee. Lisa's face crumpled. "Oh," she whispered, like the air had been knocked out of her. You're with someone?" I nodded. "Yeah." She let out a shaky breath. "Do you love her?" I held her gaze. She never made me feel like I wasn't enough. Her bottom lip trembled. "Aaron, but I was already standing up. I dropped a few bills on the table, and then as she sat there, Frozen, realizing she had lost me forever, I said the last words she would ever hear from me. You were right about one thing, Lisa. I was never enough for someone like you. Then I walked out. Lisa wasn't done. I had walked out of that cafe, fully ready to leave her behind. But some people can't let go of a losing hand. Lisa wasn't just losing, she had already lost, and she couldn't handle it. It had been a month since our final conversation at the cafe. I hadn't heard from her since, and I assumed she had finally accepted reality. Maybe she had moved on, found some other poor fool to leech off of. Then one night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. I swiped to accept, and immediately regretted it. You bastard! Lisa's voice screeched through the speaker, laced with rage and desperation. I didn't say a word, just held the phone to my ear, listening to her unravel. You ruined me. Do you hear me, Aaron? You ruined my life. There was nothing rational about her tone. She wasn't crying, she wasn't sad, she was furious. Like I was the one who had walked out on her, like I had cheated, like I had betrayed her and laughed in her face. It was almost pathetic. I have nothing, she continued, her voice breaking. You took everything from me, the house, the money. You turned people against me. Even my own friends won't talk to me anymore. I almost laughed at the audacity. Sounds rough, I said, voice completely flat. That only set her off more. You think this is funny? She shrieked. I bet you're just loving this, huh? Sitting there with your perfect little life while I have nothing? Her voice cracked on that last word. And that's when I realized what was actually happening. Lisa wasn't mad because I ruined her life. She was mad because I moved on. Because I was happy. Because, for the first time since I had walked away, she had finally accepted the brutal truth. She had destroyed herself, and I had simply let it happen. I let the silence stretch. Then, very calmly, I said the words that broke her completely. Lisa. She froze. I never said her name anymore. I didn't ruin your life. A shaky inhale. You did. Her breath hitched. You threw away everything we built. You laughed in my face while you slept with another man in our bed. And now you're mad because I didn't sit around and wait for you to come crawling back? Silence. I moved on, Lisa. I don't care about you anymore. And honestly, I let out a short, amused breath. It's hilarious watching you finally realize what you lost. The line went dead. I blocked her number after that, and just like that, Lisa was gone. For good.
After my surgery, my fiancé thought I was still under anesthesia when she told her friend. The doctor said no heavy lifting for 8 weeks. I'm stuck taking care of him when I could be with James. Her friend asked, why not leave? She said, his parents are adding me to their will next month. I recovered quickly, called my parents that night, and had her things moved to storage. It's been 3 days and she's still waiting in the hospital parking lot. 4 days ago, my life was completely different. 4 days ago, I, 37M, was engaged to Rachel, 32F, excitedly planning our wedding set for next spring. 4 days ago, I thought I knew who I was spending my life with. Funny how quickly things change when the mask slips, isn't it? I guess I should start from the beginning. I've had chronic back problems for years, herniated discs, sciatica, the works. All those college football injuries finally caught up with me. After exhausting every non-surgical option, my neurosurgeon recommended a spinal fusion. Not exactly how I planned to spend my summer, but the promise of less pain made it worth it. Rachel and I have been together for 4 years, engaged for 1. She's always been supportive of my health issues, at least outwardly. She'd rub my back during flare-ups, drive me to appointments when the pain meds made it unsafe for me to drive, and never complained about our occasionally limited activities. At least, that's what I thought. Surgery day arrived. Rachel drove me to the hospital at 5:30 a.m., held my hand as they prepped me, and was the last face I saw before the anesthesia kicked in. Standard procedure, they told me, would be about 4 hours. I'd spend a few hours in recovery, then move to a regular room for observation overnight. The surgery itself went well. The surgeon later told me they found more extensive damage than the MRI had shown, but they were able to address everything. I was lucky, he said. The procedure finished around noon, and I was wheeled into recovery. Here's where it gets interesting. I've always had a weird reaction to anesthesia. While most people take hours to fully wake up, I tend to regain consciousness relatively quickly, but remain groggy and still. The medical staff is usually surprised by how alert I am so soon after surgery, even though I'm still physically relaxed. This peculiarity has never been particularly noteworthy until now. I became aware of my surroundings in the recovery room maybe 30 to 45 minutes after surgery. Not fully alert, but conscious enough to register voices and some movement around me. My eyes were still closed, breathing slow and regular. I could hear nurses checking on other patients, the beeping of monitors, the typical recovery room soundtrack. Then I heard Rachel's voice. She must have been allowed in once I was stable. I felt her presence near my bed, though I couldn't muster the energy to open my eyes yet. "He's still out," she said, presumably to a nurse. "That's normal," came the reply. "The doctor will be by shortly to talk to you about the surgery." He did very well. I tried to signal that I was awake, but my body wasn't cooperating yet. Before I could make another attempt, I heard a different voice. Female, familiar, sounded like Rachel's friend Allie. "How did it go?" Allie asked. "Fine, I guess. Doctor hasn't been by yet," Rachel replied. Her voice sounded annoyed? Impatient? It didn't have the concerned tone I would have expected. They moved slightly away from my bed, but were still close enough that I could hear them clearly. "God, I'm exhausted already," Rachel continued. "The doctor said no heavy lifting for 8 weeks. I'm stuck taking care of him when I could be with James." James. The name hit like a bucket of ice water. James who? My brain, still foggy from anesthesia, struggled to place the name. I didn't know any James in our circle. "Why not leave?" Allie asked, her voice lowered but still audible. "I mean, it's not like you're married yet." There was a pause. I could almost picture Rachel looking around to make sure no one was listening. "His parents are adding me to their will next month. You know how loaded they are. The old man's health isn't great. Probably why they're updating everything. I just need to stick it out a little longer." My parents. My 65-year-old father, who'd built a successful construction company from nothing. My mother, who'd taught elementary school for 30 years before retiring. The people who'd welcomed Rachel into our family with open arms. The people who'd insisted on paying for our wedding because they were so happy I'd finally found the one. "That's cold, Rach. Even for you," Allie said, though she sounded more impressed than disapproving. "It's practical," Rachel replied. "Besides, it's not like I haven't earned it. 4 years listening to him talk about building projects in football, playing nice with his boring family, and now I have to play nurse for 2 months. What about James? He's getting impatient, you know? James will wait if he knows what's good for him. Look, once everything's legal and Richard Sr. kicks it, I'll be set. James can have his fun now, but he knows the score." Richard Sr. kicks it. My father. My father. They were talking about my father dying like it was a game plan, like it was something to look forward to. "And what if Mike wakes up and hears you talking like this?" Allie asked. Rachel laughed. Not the warm laugh I'd fallen in love with, something colder, sharper. "Please. They pump him so full of drugs he'll be lucky to remember his own name today. Besides, he trusts me completely. It's almost too easy." The conversation shifted then, to something about dinner plans and whether Allie could cover for Rachel meeting James tomorrow. I stopped focusing on their words, my mind reeling despite the drugs in my system. I'd like to say I confronted her right there. That I sat up in my hospital bed, pointed a dramatic finger, and exposed her treachery to everyone in the recovery room. That would have made for a better story, right? But that's not what happened. Instead, I made the split-second decision to keep playing unconscious, to gather more information, to not show my hand until I knew exactly what I was dealing with. Eventually, a nurse came over to check my vitals, and I woke up slowly, groggily, playing the part of the anesthesia patient they expected. Rachel was immediately by my side, the concerned fiancé, brushing hair from my forehead, asking how I felt. The performance was flawless. I'd have believed it myself if I hadn't heard what I just heard. "Hey babe," she cooed. "Everything went great. How are you feeling?" "Tired," I mumbled, which wasn't entirely an act. I was exhausted, though more from emotional shock than the surgery. "That's normal," she said, squeezing my hand. "I'm right here. I'll take good care of you." I almost laughed. Almost. The next few hours passed in a blur of doctor visits, nurse checks, and Rachel's constant attentiveness. Allie had left, but promised to check in tomorrow with a meaningful look at Rachel. I was moved to a regular room around 4 p.m., where I was told I'd stay overnight for observation. Rachel stayed until about 8 p.m., playing the devoted fiancé perfectly. She adjusted my pillows, asked appropriate questions when the nurses came in, and even had the nerve to call my parents to update them. Hearing her sweet voice tell my mother not to worry, that she'd take perfect care of your boy, made me physically nauseous. Or maybe that was the pain medication. When visiting hours ended, she kissed my forehead and promised to be back first thing in the morning to take me home. I smiled weakly and thanked her. As soon as the door closed behind her, I reached for my phone. First call. My parents. I asked them to come to the hospital immediately, that it was important, but that I was physically okay. They must have heard something in my voice because they didn't ask questions, just said they'd be there in 30 minutes. Second call. My best friend Eric, who thankfully lived in my building. I asked him to go to my apartment and pack up all of Rachel's things. Everything. He didn't understand, but he agreed. Third call. A locksmith. Emergency service, premium rates, worth every penny. When my parents arrived, looking worried and confused, I told them everything. The James guy. The will. The callous discussion about my father's health. My mother gasped. My father's face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. She's been playing us all, I concluded. And I need your help. What followed was a flurry of activity. My father stepped into the hallway to make calls. My mother sat by my bed, alternating between soothing me and expressing creative ways she'd like to see Rachel suffer. For a former elementary school teacher, she has a surprisingly vivid imagination. Here's what we put together that night. 1. Eric and 2 of his gym buddies packed up every single item belonging to Rachel in my apartment. Clothes, toiletries, books, electronics, everything. They loaded it all into a storage unit my father arranged for. 2. The locksmith arrived at my apartment at 11 p.m. to change all the locks. 3. My father called his attorney, yes, at 10 p.m., their golfing buddies, to ensure Rachel's name was removed from any documentation related to their estate planning. 4. My mother called Rachel's parents. This was my idea, actually. They deserved to know what kind of person their daughter was. They were horrified and embarrassed, which confirmed my suspicion that they had no idea about her scheme. 5. I texted Rachel, change of plans. My parents are taking me home tomorrow. Don't come to the hospital in the morning. Her reply was immediate. Don't be silly, babe. I've already arranged to take the day off. I'll be there at 9. I didn't respond. The next morning, my parents arrived at 7:30 a.m. with a wheelchair and discharge papers already processed. The hospital staff, seeing my father's determination and my mother's don't mess with me smile, expedited everything. By 8:15 a.m., I was in their car, heading to their house instead of my apartment. At 9:07 a.m., Rachel called. I didn't answer. She texted. I didn't respond. By 10 a.m., she'd called 12 times and sent 23 increasingly frantic texts. Where are you? The nurse said you were discharged already. Are you okay? Please answer me. Your parents aren't answering either. What's going on? Mike, you're scaring me. That last one almost made me laugh. I wasn't scaring her. The potential loss of her meal ticket was scaring her. Around noon, Eric called to tell me Rachel was at my apartment, pounding on the door. The new locks, of course, meant her key didn't work. He watched through his peephole as she tried calling me again, then sat down in the hallway, apparently planning to wait me out. She waited there for 6 hours. 6 hours. Eventually, the building manager asked her to leave, at which point she apparently had a mini meltdown, crying about how her fiancé was missing after surgery and she was worried sick. The manager, who had been briefed by my father, amazing how persuasive my dad can be when motivated, politely but firmly escorted her out. Where did she go next? The hospital. According to a nurse friend who texted me, Rachel showed up at the recovery ward insisting there had been a mistake, that I couldn't have been discharged yet. When shown the paperwork, she demanded to know who had picked me up. Privacy policies being what they are, they couldn't tell her, and so she went to the parking lot to wait and wait and wait. It's been 3 days. 3 days. According to hospital security, yes, they're now involved, she's been spending her days in the parking lot, occasionally coming in to ask if I've been readmitted, then returning to her vigilance when told no. Meanwhile, I've been recovering at my parents' house. The comfort of knowing I'm surrounded by people who genuinely care about me has probably been as therapeutic as the surgery itself. My back actually feels better than it has in years, despite the surgical pain. Yesterday, my father's attorney sent Rachel a formal letter. It outlined exactly what we knew, including time-stamped transcripts of her conversation in the recovery room. A bit of a bluff, but an effective one. It made clear that any attempt to contact me or my family would result in a restraining order. It informed her that her belongings had been placed in a storage unit, paid for 1 month, and provided the access information. The letter concluded with a personal note from me. Rachel, by the time you read this, you'll have wasted days looking for me in all the wrong places. Just like I wasted years looking for love with all the wrong person. The difference is, I've learned my lesson. Have you? The keys to the storage unit are taped to the back of this letter. Consider them the keys to your new life, one that doesn't include me, my family, or their will. Please give my regards to James. According to the attorney, the letter was delivered to Rachel this morning, as she sat in her car in the hospital parking lot. The report from the courier said she opened it, read it, and simply put her head on the steering wheel. She hasn't tried to contact me directly since receiving the letter, though she did call my parents once. They didn't answer. I'm still processing everything. The betrayal, the calculated nature of her deception, the fact that I was days away from marrying someone who saw me as nothing more than a stepping stone to wealth. It's surreal, but in a strange way, I'm grateful. Grateful that my weird anesthesia reaction revealed her true nature before we were legally bound. Grateful that my parents and friends rallied around me without question. Grateful that, unlike Rachel, I know who's really on my side. The road to physical recovery will be long. 8 weeks of limited activity, physical therapy, the works. But compared to recovering from nearly making the biggest mistake of my life, the back surgery is a walk in the park. As for Rachel, last I heard, she finally left the hospital parking lot. The storage unit manager confirmed she came by to collect her things. She'll land on her feet, I'm sure. People like Rachel always do. Maybe James will be her next mark. Or maybe, just maybe, she'll take this opportunity to reflect on the kind of person she's become. But somehow, I doubt it. Update. Thanks for all the support and advice. For those asking for updates. Yes, I'm doing well physically. The surgery was successful, and though recovery is slow, I'm already experiencing less nerve pain than before. No, I haven't heard directly from Rachel since everything went down. Her social media has gone mysteriously quiet, though mutual friends report she's telling people I had a psychotic break after surgery and abandoned her. Classic. James, whoever he is, remains a mystery. I have no interest in tracking him down or confronting him. For all I know, he might be another victim of her manipulation. My parents are doing fine. They're more angry than hurt at this point. They've also added extra security to their estate planning, just in case Rachel wasn't working alone. For those suggesting I pursue legal action, there's really nothing to sue over. Being a gold digger isn't illegal, unfortunately. Besides, the clean break is worth more to me than any monetary compensation. To the person who asked if I'm open to dating again, ask me in a year. Right now, I'm focusing on healing, both physically and emotionally. Sometimes life hands you awful situations that turn out to be blessings in disguise. This was definitely one of those times. I dodged a bullet, even if I had to have my spine cut open to do it. In today's Reddit story, "You're just a wallet," my stepdaughter laughed, mocking me for thinking I was family. "My real dad is better than you." I just nodded and stopped paying. The day she had to call her deadbeat dad for rent money, she ended up crying and begging me instead. I never expected my stepdaughter to see me as her real father. I knew from the beginning that I was stepping into a complicated situation when I married my wife, Julia. She had a daughter, Ava, from her previous relationship, and I was more than willing to love and support them both. I was ready for the usual growing pains of blended families. The awkwardness, the slow trust building, the hesitation. But what I wasn't ready for being treated like a walking ATM. From the moment Julia and I got serious, I made it very clear that I wasn't just marrying her. I was committing to Ava too. I paid for her school tuition. I took her to sports practice. I taught her how to drive. I saved up to help her with college. I was at every recital, game, and event. A real dad? Not a single birthday card. Not a single call on Christmas. Not a dime in child support. Yet despite me being the one who was always there, Ava idolized him. I told myself it was just a kid's blind love for a parent, that maybe one day she'd see who truly cared for her. But as the years went by, things only got worse. Ava never missed a chance to remind me that I wasn't her real dad. If I asked her to do chores, "You're not my dad, don't tell me what to do." If I tried to give her advice, "I'll ask my real dad instead." If I told her she couldn't do something, she'd run to Julia, who would immediately defend her. "She's just being a teenager, honey. Don't take it personally, she's still adjusting. It's just a phase, she'll grow out of it." Years passed. Ava never grew out of it. And Julia, she always had an excuse. One night, I tried to have a serious conversation with Julia. "She treats me like a stranger, Julia. I've done everything for her, and she still refuses to acknowledge me as a father figure." Julia sighed. "She doesn't mean it, Will. She's just struggling with identity issues. Her real dad wasn't there for her, and that left a wound." That word stuck with me. Real. I took a deep breath. I get that. But I can't keep giving my all when I get nothing in return. It's exhausting. Julia frowned. "She loves you, in her own way." I looked at her carefully. "Are you sure?" Julia hesitated, for the first time, and that's when a terrible thought hit me. What if she married me, not because she loved me, but because she needed someone to provide for her and Ava? It was a thought I had never allowed myself to consider before, but that night, I couldn't shake it. It happened on a random afternoon. I had just come home from work early and was passing by Ava's room when I heard her laughing with her friends, and then I heard something that made my stomach drop. "No, he's not my real dad. He's just a wallet." Silence. Then another voice, one of her friends, giggled. "Damn, girl." Ava continued, completely unaware that I was standing just outside the door. "I don't even know why he tries so hard. My real dad is so much cooler. Once I move out, I'm never talking to him again." Laughter. Cold, cruel laughter. I felt physically sick. I walked away. Not because I didn't want to confront her. Oh, I did. But because I suddenly realized, what would be the point? I had spent years sacrificing, supporting, loving this girl. And to her, I was nothing but a paycheck. I walked straight to the kitchen where Julia was washing dishes. "I just heard Ava call me just a wallet to her friends," I said, my voice eerily calm. Julia turned around, startled. "What? No, she wouldn't." She did. For the first time in my life, I saw guilt flash across Julia's face. She opened her mouth, probably to offer another one of her justifications. But I was done. "I've taken care of her for years, Julia, and she's already planning to cut me off the moment she doesn't need me anymore." Julia looked away. That hesitation again. "She's just a kid." I stared at her. "You really think that's an excuse?" She didn't answer. I don't know what was worse, the fact that Ava said it, or the fact that Julia didn't fight back when I told her. That silence from my wife? That was my answer. She knew Ava saw me as nothing but a bank account, and instead of correcting it, she let it happen. That was when I realized something that made my stomach turn. Maybe Ava wasn't the only one who saw me as just a wallet. Looking back, I started noticing all the little red flags I had ignored over the years. Julia always encouraged me to pay for everything, but when I asked if Ava should get a part-time job, she would shut it down. Whenever I tried to set financial boundaries, Julia would guilt-trip me. She never once tried to discipline Ava for her ungratefulness. She always acted like things would get better, but never made an effort to change them. And the worst part? I realized I didn't know if Julia would have ever married me if I wasn't financially stable. That thought made my chest tighten. Because what if I was just an investment? After that day, I stopped going out of my way for Ava. I wasn't cruel, I just stopped trying to win her over. But Ava? She didn't even notice. She kept spending my money like it was infinite. She started asking for bigger allowances. She wanted a new car because her old one was embarrassing. She started browsing expensive colleges without a care in the world. And when I suggested she apply for scholarships or get a part-time job, she laughed. Why would I do that? That's what you're for. Julia, who was sitting beside her at the dinner table, just sighed. Ava, be nice. Not Ava, that's unacceptable. Not Ava, apologize. Just be nice. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just Ava's fault. Julia let this happen, and if I stayed quiet, it would never stop. That night, I sat Julia down. You need to stop enabling this. Julia frowned. Will, I told you, she's just immature. I shook my head. No, she's entitled. There's a difference. Julia sighed. What do you want me to do? She's a teenager. She's figuring herself out. I gave her a hard look. No, she's already figured it out. She knows exactly what she's doing. Julia bit her lip. You're making too big of a deal out of this. I clenched my jaw. Am I? Then tell me this. If I lost my job tomorrow and couldn't provide for you and Ava, would you still be here? Silence. A long, guilt-ridden silence. She opened her mouth, then closed it. And I knew. She couldn't even lie to me. After that, I made up my mind. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to argue. I was simply going to give her exactly what she wanted. She said I was just a wallet? Fine. Then I'd close the damn wallet and let her see how much her real dad cared about her when I was gone. That night, after my argument with Julia, I made the final decision. No more discussions. No more excuses. No more being treated like an ATM. Ava thought I was just a wallet? Fine. Wallet's closed. At first, Ava didn't even notice. She still went out with her friends like nothing had changed. She still swiped the credit card I had given her. She still thought she had control. Then, one afternoon, the first crack appeared. She stormed into the living room, face red with fury. Well, my card got declined. Fix it. I didn't even look up from my laptop. No. She blinked. What? I finally turned to her, calm as ever. I canceled it. She stared at me, processing. Then she lost it, screaming about how unfair I was, calling me selfish and controlling, accusing me of ruining her life. Julia ran in, alarmed. What's going on? Ava spun around, jabbing a finger toward me. He canceled my card. Julia's eyes widened, then she turned to me, confused. Will, why would you do that? I met her gaze, unblinking. Because Ava made it clear I'm just a wallet, so I decided to act like one. And wallets don't open themselves. Silence. Julia shifted uncomfortably. Ava clenched her fists. I don't need you. My real dad will help me. I smirked. Good, call him. For the next few days, Ava was in full denial. She strutted around the house like nothing was wrong. She told her friends it was just a misunderstanding. She was so sure her biological dad would step up. Then came the phone call. I was in the kitchen when she called him. Dad, I need help with rent. Pause. Then I heard his lazy, dismissive voice through the phone. Rent? Kid, I barely got money for myself. Ava stiffened. Wait, what? Her hands shook. But you said you'd always be there for me. And then, he laughed. I was just saying that. You didn't actually believe it, did you? Ava turned pale. You don't mean that. Listen, kid, I don't got time for this. Ask your stepdad. That's his job, ain't it? And just like that, he hung up. Ava sat there staring at her phone like it had just betrayed her. Her biological dad had abandoned her. Her credit card was gone. Her friends who once loved shopping with her stopped answering her texts. Her perfect little bubble had burst. I walked past the kitchen and saw her still gripping the phone, eyes wide with shock. She was finally realizing the truth. And for the first time in her entire life, she had no one left to save her. Ava had spent years living in a fantasy. She thought she could treat me like garbage and still get everything she wanted. She thought her biological father was her safety net. She thought her mother would always defend her. Now, that fantasy was crumbling. And soon, even Julia, her biggest defender, was about to realize just how badly she had failed her. After her dad hung up, Ava just sat there, not moving, not speaking, just staring at the phone like she was waiting for it to ring again. It didn't. Then, without a word, she got up and stormed off to her room. I expected her to start another tantrum, another outburst. Instead, for the first time, there was just silence. And Julia? She looked shaken. That night, Julia and I sat on opposite sides of the bed. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, she sighed. I never thought he'd really turn his back on her like that. I turned to look at her. Really? Because I did. She didn't argue. She just rubbed her temples, looking exhausted. I thought I was protecting her. I thought, if I kept the peace, things would eventually get better. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. No, Julia, you weren't protecting her, you were enabling her. She flinched. I sighed. She had a choice. She could have had a father who actually cared about her. She could have had a man who never left, who paid for everything, who showed up, but she chose to spit on that. Julia's voice was barely above a whisper. Because I let her. I didn't say anything, because she was right. Julia had always excused Ava's behavior. She defended her, shielded her, softened the consequences, and now, her daughter was completely alone. And this time, Julia couldn't fix it. Tears welled up in her eyes. I should have stopped her. I exhaled slowly. Yeah, you should have. Julia wiped her face and finally looked at me. You were right to cut her off. For the first time in our entire marriage, Julia finally saw it. And for the first time, she wasn't standing in the way. Over the next few weeks, Ava spiraled. Her landlord sent an eviction warning. She begged her friends for money. They ghosted her. Her old job wouldn't take her back. She was broke, abandoned, and completely out of options. And finally, she cracked. One evening, I was working in my office when I heard a soft knock on the door. I already knew who it was. I opened it to find Ava standing there, looking like a shadow of the girl she once was. Her face was pale. Her eyes were puffy from crying. She looked smaller, weaker, like reality had finally broken her. She swallowed hard. Can we talk? I leaned against the doorframe. Talk about what? She hesitated. Then, in a voice I had never heard from her before, soft, shaking, almost childlike, she whispered, I'm sorry. Ava took a deep breath, struggling to find the words. I didn't mean what I said before. I was stupid. I was selfish. I took you for granted. I stayed silent. You were always there for me. You showed up. You paid for everything. You treated me like a real dad. Her voice cracked. And I treated you like nothing. She looked down, ashamed. I was wrong, and now I don't know what to do. Then she looked up at me, desperation in her eyes. Please, I need help. I took a long breath, staring at her. For the first time in years, Ava was truly vulnerable. No fake bravado, no entitlement, just pure, raw desperation. But me, I wasn't desperate. I had already moved on. I sighed. Ava, do you know what a wallet does when it's empty? She blinked, confused. I took a slow breath. It closes. Then I shut the door in her face, and this time, I didn't pick up when she called again. Ava never called again after that night. At least, not from her number. A week later, Julia's phone rang while we were having dinner. She glanced at the screen, her expression tightening. It's Ava? I kept eating. You gonna answer? Julia hesitated. Then, for the first time in her life, she let it ring. And that was when I knew she had finally let go. A few days later, I got an email from Ava. I know you probably won't read this, but I miss you. I was stupid. I see that now. I lost everything, and it's all my fault. I don't know what to do. Please just talk to me. I stared at the screen for a moment. Then, I deleted it. No response. No closure. Nothing. Because sometimes the best revenge is simply moving on. What happened to Ava? She lost her apartment. She had to move into a tiny shared rental with 2 strangers. She worked a minimum wage job. She finally understood what it felt like to have nothing. And me, I still had my home. I still had my career. I still had my wife. And the best part, I never had to hear Ava's voice again. At my dad's funeral, my GF whispered to her friend, "Can you believe he's crying like a child? It's giving me the ick." They snickered. I heard every word. The next morning, she found out what real loss felt like. My father was a good man. A quiet man. He taught me how to change the oil in a car, how to frame a wall, and how to treat people with respect, even when they didn't deserve it. He worked as a union carpenter for 40 years, and the calluses on his hands had their own stories to tell. When he passed away 2 weeks ago after a short, brutal fight with cancer, a part of me went with him. I'm not ashamed to say that. I'm his son. I loved him. The funeral was last Wednesday. It was a gray, cold day that matched the emptiness in my chest. I stood in the front row of the small chapel, my sister on one side, my mother on the other. Behind me somewhere was my girlfriend of 3 years, Jenna. She was there for support, or so I thought. I managed to hold it together through the service, through the procession to the cemetery, through the awkward handshakes and sad smiles from people I hadn't seen in years. But as my father's oldest friend, a man named George, stood up to give the eulogy, the dam inside me finally broke. He started telling a story about my dad teaching him how to fish when they were just kids, and the memories came flooding back. Me as a boy on a boat with my dad, the smell of lake water and sunscreen, his patient hands guiding mine as I baited a hook. The tears came. Not loud, sobbing tears. Just silent, hot tears that tracked down my face. It was a raw, helpless grief. In that moment, I was just a son who missed his dad. And that's when I heard it. It was a whisper, right behind me. So close I could feel the warmth of the breath. It was Jenna, talking to her friend and bridesmaid, Maya, who had come with her. "Can you believe he's crying like a child?" Jenna whispered, her voice laced with a kind of baffled disgust. "It's giving me the ick." Then a sound that will be burned into my memory forever. A soft, suppressed snicker from Maya. The world went silent. The grief, the sadness, the entire funeral just vanished. It was replaced by a feeling I had never experienced before. A white-hot, perfectly clear rage that was so intense it felt like ice. The tears on my face felt like they were freezing. I didn't turn around. I didn't move a muscle. I just stood there, staring at my father's casket, and listened to George finish his story. I shook hands, I accepted condolences, I even hugged my mother. But I wasn't really there. My mind was already somewhere else, working with a cold, mechanical precision. She thought my grief, my love for my father was an ick. She found my humanity repulsive. I had been planning on giving this woman my last name, my future, my life. And in the most vulnerable moment I had ever endured, she had shown me exactly who she was. The rest of the day is a blur. I remember the drive to my mom's house for the reception. I remember Jenna trying to hold my hand in the car, and the instinctive way I pulled it away, blaming it on needing to shift gears. I remember her and Maya in a corner of the living room, scrolling through their phones and looking bored while my family shared memories of my dad. She thought she was being subtle. She had no idea I was watching her every move, not as her grieving boyfriend, but as a strategist assessing an enemy. She had just declared war at a funeral, and she didn't even know it. I went home that night to the apartment I owned, the one she had moved into 2 years ago. She came with me, talking about some drama at her work, completely oblivious. She fell asleep around 11. I didn't sleep at all. I just sat in the living room in the dark, and I made a list. The next morning, I was going to teach her the meaning of real loss. Update 1. The morning after my father's funeral was the first morning of the rest of my life. I was up before the sun, moving with a purpose I hadn't felt in years. The grief for my dad was still a heavy cloak, but the cold fire of a new resolution burned underneath it. Jenna was still asleep in my bed. My bed. In my apartment. I looked at her for a long moment. This stranger who had snickered at my pain. There was no love left. There was nothing. Just a problem to be solved. My first move was silent and digital. I opened my laptop at the kitchen table. Jenna had a supplementary credit card on my main account. An emergency card that she used for brunches with Maya, for new clothes, for salon appointments. I logged into my bank's website. 2 clicks. Card canceled. User removed. Done. Next, the joint savings account. We had one, intended for a down payment on a future house. I had contributed 90% of the funds. I did a quick calculation and transferred my entire contribution, plus half of the accrued interest, into my personal checking account. I left her 10%, exactly what she had put in. It amounted to a few $1,000s, a parting gift. Then the car. Jenna drove a nice SUV. It was a year old. It was also legally my nice SUV. The title was in my name, the loan was in my name, the insurance was in my name. I had bought it for her so she would have a reliable vehicle. She made a small payment to me each month, far less than what a real lease would cost. I found the spare key in the junk drawer. I went outside into the cold morning air and drove the car to a dealership a few miles away that specialized in buying used vehicles. I knew the manager. I told him I needed to sell it fast. He said he could have the paperwork and a check ready by the end of the day. I handed him the key and took an Uber back to my apartment. By the time I got back, it was 7:30. Jenna was still asleep. That's when I started on the physical part of the eviction. I went to the hall closet and pulled out a box of heavy-duty black trash bags. If she thought my emotions were garbage, then her possessions could be treated the same way. I was methodical. I started with her closet. The designer dresses, the dozens of pairs of shoes, the handbags that cost more than my first car. I didn't fold them. I just pulled them from the hangers and stuffed them into the bags. Her side of the bathroom was next. The endless bottles of creams and lotions, the expensive makeup, the hair products, all of it swept into a bag. I went through the entire apartment, a silent whirlwind of disposal. Every book, every trinket, every photo of us in a silver frame. I packed it all. By 9 o'clock, there was a mountain of black trash bags piled in the middle of the living room. It was a monument to a dead relationship. That's when she finally woke up. She walked out of the bedroom, yawning, stretching, and stopped dead in her tracks when she saw the scene. What is going on?" she asked, her voice thick with sleep and confusion. "Are we cleaning?" I didn't turn around. I just kept tying the top of the last bag. "No," I said, my voice calm and even. "You are leaving." She laughed, a nervous, uncertain sound. "What are you talking about, Jake? Is this a joke? It's not funny." I finally turned to face her. I made sure my expression was completely blank. "I'm not joking. I overheard you at my father's funeral yesterday. I heard what you said to Maya. I heard you laugh." The color drained from her face. For the first time, I saw a flicker of genuine panic in her eyes. I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't you?" I took a step closer. "Let me remind you. Can you believe he's crying like a child? It's giving me the ick. Does that ring a bell?" She just stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. "You stood behind me while I was mourning my father, the man who welcomed you into his home, and you mocked me." I continued, my voice still quiet, but hard as steel. "You found my grief for the most important man in my life to be an ick. So I'm doing you a favor. I'm removing the source of your discomfort from your life. Me. And since I am the source of everything else in your life, this apartment, that car, that credit card, all of that is being removed as well." She finally found her voice. "You can't do this. This is insane." It was a stupid comment. I was emotional. "No, I was emotional," I corrected her. "You were cruel. And now you have to deal with the consequences. Your supplementary card has been canceled. The car you were driving is currently being sold. Your belongings are in these bags. You have 1 hour to call your friend Maya and have her come pick you and your things up. Then you will give me the key to this apartment, and you will leave." The tears started then. Big, dramatic crocodile tears. "Jake, please, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I love you." I just looked at her, completely unmoved. "You know, Jenna," I said, my voice dropping to a near whisper, "watching you cry right now, it's giving me the ick." The look on her face was worth 1,000 empty apologies. The hour that followed was a masterclass in frantic desperation. She called Maya, screaming into the phone. She tried to bargain with me, to reason with me, to rage at me. I just sat on a kitchen stool drinking a cup of coffee and watched. When Maya arrived, her face a mask of fury, they both started in on me. "You are a monster for doing this to her," Maya yelled. "Am I?" I asked calmly. "Or am I just a guy who decided he doesn't want to spend his life with someone who finds his love for his dead father disgusting?" They had no answer for that. It took them nearly an hour to haul all 37 trash bags of her life out of my apartment and stuff them into Maya's small SUV. When they were finally done, Jenna stood in the open doorway, her face a mess of tears and makeup. She threw her apartment key on the floor. "You will regret this," she hissed. "No, Jenna," I said, looking her dead in the eye. "You already do." Then I closed the door and locked it. I stood there for a long time, listening to the silence. It wasn't the empty silence of loss. It was the clean, quiet silence of freedom. Update 2. The week after the eviction, as I've come to think of it, was a strange one. I was dealing with the logistics of my father's estate, which was a heavy but necessary task. It kept my mind busy. Every form I filled out, every account I closed, felt like an act of honoring him. And every night, I would come home to my quiet, Jenna-free apartment and feel a sense of profound relief. I had expected a counterattack, and it didn't take long to arrive. The initial assault was digital, a barrage of texts and calls from blocked numbers, voicemails from Jenna, alternating between hysterical sobbing and venomous rage, messages from Maya, calling me an unstable psycho who needed serious help. I deleted them all without listening to them fully. Then, the narrative began to form. They launched a coordinated smear campaign among our mutual friends. The story they were spinning was a work of fiction. Apparently, I had suffered a complete mental breakdown due to my father's death. In my grief-stricken, unstable state, I had a psychotic episode and violently threw the loving, supportive Jenna out onto the street for no reason at all. They were worried about me. They were scared of what I might do next. It was a clever strategy. It painted me as the villain and her as the martyred saint who had endured my instability. A few of our mutual friends, the ones who were more her friends than mine, bought it completely. I got a few concerned yet accusatory text messages. "Dude, are you okay? Heard you went off the deep end. Kicking Jenna out was not cool." I knew I couldn't let this narrative take root. I had to fight back, but not on their terms. I wasn't going to get into a public shouting match. My revenge needed to be like a sniper shot, one clean, precise action that would end the war. I remembered something from the funeral. As I was standing there, crying, my cousin Sarah was standing just a few feet away. She had come over and given me a hug right after George's eulogy. She was closer to Jenna and Maya than I was. There was a chance she had heard it too. I called her. I didn't beat around the bush. "Sarah, I need to ask you something important. At Dad's funeral, when George was speaking, I was pretty broken up. I know you were standing near me. Did you happen to overhear Jenna say anything?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Oh, Jake," she said, her voice full of pity. "I didn't want to be the one to tell you. I heard it all. I couldn't believe it. I told Mom about it on the way home. We were disgusted." Bingo. I had a witness, and not just any witness, a member of my own family. My next call was to our one key mutual friend, a guy named Mark, who was the social hub of our group. If you wanted a story to spread, you told Mark. "Mark," I said, "I know you're hearing a lot of crazy stories right now. I just want to tell you the truth. Once, so you have it. At my dad's funeral, while I was crying during the eulogy, Jenna leaned over to Maya and said, 'Can you believe he's crying like a child? It's giving me the ick.' My cousin Sarah was standing right there and heard it too. That is why she is no longer in my life. That is the whole story." The silence on the other end of the phone was deafening. I could practically hear the gears turning in his head. The vague story of my breakdown versus a direct, shocking quote corroborated by a witness. There was no contest. "She said that?" he finally asked, his voice full of disbelief. "At a funeral?" "Yes," I said. "That's who she is." It took less than 48 hours for the truth to dismantle their web of lies. The story of what Jenna said and where she said it was so monstrous, so indefensible, that it completely annihilated her victim narrative. The concerned texts I was getting turned into messages of support. A few people even sent me apologies for doubting me. Jenna and Maya were exposed for the callous, cruel people they were. The desperation from Jenna's end escalated. A few days later, I got a frantic call from the building manager of my apartment complex. Apparently, Jenna had shown up with a locksmith, claiming she was a legal resident who had been illegally locked out. Thankfully, I had already sent him an email the week before, informing him that she was no longer living with me and was not on the lease. He had denied the locksmith entry and threatened to call the police if she didn't leave the property. Her attempt to publicly humiliate me and force her way back in had failed spectacularly. The final pathetic attempt came in the form of a legal-looking letter. It was from a cheap letter-for-hire law office. It was a demand for financial restitution. It claimed she was entitled to half the value of the SUV, a cash settlement for emotional distress, and 3 months of spousal support to help her get back on her feet. It was a joke, but a joke that needed to be answered. I forwarded it to my family's lawyer, the same one who was handling my father's estate. His response was a work of art. It was a single page. It stated, in no uncertain terms, that Jenna had no legal claim to any of my assets. It reminded her that she was a guest in my home, not a legal tenant. It then included a formal invoice for $1,500, the cost of her portion of the rent and utilities for the final month she lived in my apartment, which she had not paid. The letter concluded by saying that we would be happy to waive the invoice in exchange for her ceasing all further contact. But if she chose to pursue her baseless legal claims, we would aggressively countersue for that amount, plus all associated legal fees. The silence that followed was absolute. The war was over. I had won. Final update. It's been 6 months. The leaves have turned, fallen, and the first snow is on the ground. The sharp edges of the grief for my father have softened, replaced by a warm, enduring sense of his presence in my life. The drama with Jenna feels like it happened to someone else in another lifetime. Life, as it turns out, goes on, and it gets better. So much better. I never heard from Jenna or her lawyer again after that final letter. The invoice was, unsurprisingly, never paid. But the harassment stopped. That was payment enough. I heard about her life in bits and pieces, through the grapevine of old mutual friends. Her downfall was not swift and dramatic. It was a slow, quiet, and pathetic collapse. After wearing out her welcome on Maya's couch in less than a month, she had no choice but to move back in with her parents. The independent, sophisticated life she had built for herself was revealed to be a fragile facade, held up entirely by my income and my stability. She had to get a job, a low-level administrative position that paid a fraction of what she was used to spending on a single shopping trip. The new SUV was gone, replaced by an old, beat-up sedan her parents gave her. The brunches, the salons, the designer clothes, all gone. Her social life withered. Maya and her other friends, the ones who enabled her cruelty, slowly drifted away. They were attracted to the lifestyle she had with me. When the lifestyle disappeared, so did they. The irony is almost poetic. The woman who found real emotion icky is now living a life devoid of any real joy or substance. She is trapped in a state of perpetual dissatisfaction, a prisoner of the superficial values she held so dear. Her life is, by her own definition, one giant ick. As for me, I've been rebuilding. I sold my apartment in the city and bought a small house with a bit of land, the kind of place my dad always dreamed of having. I've been spending my weekends working on it, getting my hands dirty, building something real and lasting. My cousin Sarah and I have become closer than ever. My family, my real family, has been my rock. I've also started a foundation in my father's name. It provides scholarships for young people who want to go into the skilled trades like carpentry. It's a way of honoring his legacy, of turning my loss into something positive for others. It's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. I saw Jenna once, a few weeks ago. I was at a home improvement store, loading bags of soil into the back of my truck. She was pulling into the parking lot in her old sedan. Our eyes met for a brief second through her windshield. I saw a flicker of something in her face, shock, shame, maybe even regret. She quickly looked away and drove to the far end of the parking lot. I didn't feel a thing. No anger, no sadness, not even pity. It was like looking at a stranger. The hold she had on me was completely gone. She was just a person I used to know, a footnote in a chapter of my life that was now closed. The ultimate revenge wasn't in the canceled card or the repossessed car. It wasn't in the social humiliation or the legal threats. The ultimate revenge was my own peace. It was in discovering that the life she tried to tear down was just a house, and I was the foundation. I could rebuild, stronger and better than before. She mocked me for crying at my father's funeral. She saw my love as a weakness, but she was wrong. That love, that grief, was a sign of my humanity. It was the source of my strength. And in the end, it was the thing that saved me from a life with someone who would never understand what it means to truly lose something, because she never truly valued anything. She lost me, but I gained myself back. And that's a trade I'd make every single time. I caught her sending revealing photos to her ex. When confronted, she said it's just how girls keep backups in case things don't work out. I smiled, apologized, and took her to dinner. While she was in the bathroom, I forwarded the entire thread to her ultra-religious father. Before we start, I just want to say thank you for being here. It means the world. But take a look at this. Only 8% of people watching are subscribed. If you enjoy these stories and want to support more of them, just one click makes a huge difference. My girlfriend Melissa and I had been together for about a year and a half. We met through a mutual friend at a charity event, hit it off immediately, and things progressed pretty naturally from there. I'm 32, work as a civil engineer for a construction company, and lead a fairly straightforward life. Melissa is 28, works in pharmaceutical sales, and comes from what she always described as a super strict religious family that she'd mostly escaped from when she went to college. In the time we'd been dating, I'd only met her parents twice, once at her brother's wedding, where her father barely acknowledged me because Melissa and I were living in sin. And once, at a painfully awkward Thanksgiving dinner, where her father spent most of the meal quoting scripture about the path to righteousness. Her mother mostly kept quiet, nodding along with whatever her husband said. It was clear they weren't thrilled with Melissa's lifestyle, but she seemed to have established a delicate truce with them. They wouldn't lecture her too much if she showed up for major holidays and kept her sinful life out of their sight. Despite the family drama, our relationship was solid. Or so I thought. One Saturday morning, Melissa was in the shower while I made coffee. Her phone, which was charging on the kitchen counter, lit up with several notifications in a row. I wasn't the type to snoop, but when a guy's name I didn't recognize, Jake, appeared along with a preview that said, "Damn, baby, send more like." I'll admit, my curiosity got the better of me. I picked up her phone, which didn't have a passcode because she said they were too much trouble, and opened the message thread. What I found was a months-long conversation with her ex-boyfriend, filled with flirtatious messages, inside jokes about their past relationship, and increasingly revealing photos of Melissa that had apparently been sent just minutes before she got in the shower. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through the messages. There were dozens of exchanges, dating back almost 8 months, which meant this had been going on for most of our relationship. The photos started relatively innocent, but had progressed to the kind you definitely don't send to someone when you're in a committed relationship with someone else. Jake, miss seeing that body in person. Play your cards right, and maybe you will again someday. What about that engineer dude? He's sweet, but things aren't set in stone. A girl needs options. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I set her phone down exactly where it had been and tried to process what I'd just discovered. I must have been standing there longer than I realized, because suddenly Melissa was in the kitchen, hair wrapped in a towel, reaching for her phone. "Everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, casually checking her notifications. I saw her quickly swipe away Jake's message preview. "Who's Jake?" I asked directly. Her eyes flicked up to me, then back to her phone, then to me again. The split-second calculation was visible on her face. "Just an old friend," she said with a shrug. "We catch up sometimes." "By catch up, do you mean you send him revealing photos while I'm in the next room?" Her entire demeanor changed in an instant. The casual facade dropped, and she went on the offensive. "You went through my phone? What the hell, Ryan? That's a massive invasion of privacy." Classic deflection. I stayed calm. "The messages popped up while your phone was on the counter. I saw enough of the preview to be concerned. So yes, I looked. And now I'm asking you to explain why you're sending those kinds of photos to your ex while we're in a relationship." She rolled her eyes like I was being ridiculous. "It's not a big deal. Jake and I have history, and we still talk sometimes. It's harmless." "Harmless? You told him things aren't set in stone with me, and that you might let him see you in person again." She sighed, like she was explaining something to a child. "It's just how girls keep backups in case things don't work out. Everyone does it." I stared at her, genuinely stunned. "Everyone does not do that. That's not normal relationship behavior." "God, you're so naive," she said with a dismissive laugh. "This is why I didn't tell you. I knew you'd overreact like this. It doesn't mean anything. It's just insurance." "Insurance? Against what?" "Against ending up alone. Look, men always have options. Women need to strategize. Jake is just a backup plan." "I'm with you, aren't I?" Her complete lack of remorse was almost more shocking than the messages themselves. There was no apology, no acknowledgement that what she'd done was wrong, just a casual explanation of her backup strategy, as if it were perfectly reasonable relationship behavior. In that moment, I realized 2 things. First, this relationship was over. And second, I wanted Melissa to experience real consequences for her actions, not just a typical breakup where she'd move on to Jake or another backup without missing a beat. So I made a decision that surprised even me. "You know what? Maybe I'm overreacting," I said, forcing a smile. "You're right. We all need insurance in life. I'm sorry I looked at your phone." She seemed surprised by my sudden capitulation, but quickly accepted it. "It's fine. Just trust me next time, okay? I'm with you because I want to be." "Let me make it up to you," I said. How about dinner tonight at that new Italian place you've been wanting to try? My treat. Seriously? That place is impossible to get into. I know a guy. I replied with a wink. In reality, I'd been holding a reservation there for weeks, planning to take her for our upcoming anniversary. But that anniversary wasn't going to happen now. She beamed. You're the best. I need to go shopping for a new dress for that place. Take your time, I said. Reservation's at 8. While she was out shopping, I made some preparations of my own. First, I documented the entire message thread with Jake, taking screenshots on my own phone. Then I packed up all of Melissa's things from my apartment, not angrily throwing them into boxes, but carefully organizing them so nothing would be damaged. I stacked everything neatly in my spare bedroom, out of sight. When she returned with shopping bags, excitedly showing me the expensive dress she'd bought for dinner, I played along, complimenting her choice and acting like everything was normal. That evening, we arrived at the restaurant and were seated at a prime table. Melissa was in high spirits, taking photos of everything for her Instagram. We ordered appetizers, entrees, and an expensive bottle of wine. The conversation flowed naturally. I'd always found it easy to talk to her, which made the betrayal sting even more. When our main courses arrived, Melissa excused herself to the restroom. As soon as she was out of sight, I picked up her phone, which she'd left on the table. Still no passcode. I quickly opened her message thread with Jake, selected the entire conversation including all the photos, and forwarded it to a new recipient. Dad. I knew from previous interactions that her father, a conservative deacon at their church, had very strong views about appropriate behavior, especially for his daughter. I also knew that he paid for Melissa's car insurance and her phone bill, despite her having a well-paying job, because she'd often bragged about how she manipulated her parents into continuing to support her financially, even though she was approaching 30. Just before hitting send, I added a brief message. Dad, I think I've been sending these to the wrong person by mistake. Sorry. I hit send. Deleted the forwarded message from her text history, so she wouldn't immediately see what I'd done, and placed her phone exactly where she'd left it. Then I took a long, satisfying sip of my wine. When Melissa returned, I suggested we order dessert. After all, we're celebrating, I said with a smile. Celebrating what? She asked. New beginnings, I replied cryptically. We finished our meal, and I paid the check, $280 plus tip, the most expensive dinner I'd ever bought, worth every penny. I drove us back to my apartment in comfortable silence. When we arrived, instead of heading inside, I popped the trunk and retrieved a box of her belongings. What's this? She asked, confusion spreading across her face. The first load of your things, I said calmly. The rest are just inside the door. I've packed everything up for you. What are you talking about? I'm breaking up with you, Melissa. I don't date people who keep backups. Her expression morphed from confusion to anger. Are you serious? After I explained everything? After that nice dinner? The dinner was my parting gift. Consider it insurance against you ever thinking I wasn't generous until the very end. This is ridiculous, she snapped. You're throwing away our relationship over some harmless texts? No, I'm ending our relationship because you've been lying to me for months, because you explicitly told your ex you might get back with him someday, because you don't respect me or what we had. Whatever, she said, rolling her eyes again. Jake will be thrilled to hear this. I'm sure he will, I agreed, and I think your dad will be thrilled to see those messages too. Her face went pale. What? While you were in the bathroom, I forwarded your entire conversation with Jake to your father. Every message, every photo. I figured if you believe in backup so much, you should have a backup place to live when your dad cuts off your financial support. She frantically grabbed her phone, but of course, there was no evidence of what I'd done in her sent messages. You're bluffing, she said, but her voice wavered. Check your dad's messages in about 3, 2, 1. Right on cue, her phone began ringing. The contact name, Dad. The color drained completely from her face as she stared at the phone in horror. You should probably take that, I suggested. Though I'd recommend not doing it here, as I've changed the locks and your key won't work anymore. You can't do this, she shouted, now in full panic mode. I already did. Your backup plan just became your primary plan. Good luck explaining those photos to your father, she answered the phone as she walked away. And I could hear her father's voice thundering through the speaker even from several feet away. Melissa Ann Roberts, what is the meaning of these pictures? I closed my apartment door, poured myself another glass of wine, and felt something I hadn't expected. Not satisfaction exactly, but a strange sense of justice. I hadn't yelled, hadn't made a scene, hadn't done anything illegal. I'd simply showed her father exactly who his daughter really was. The fallout was both swift and extensive. According to mutual friends, Melissa's father did indeed cut her off financially. No more car insurance, phone bill, or the emergency credit card she had apparently been using regularly for non-emergency shopping. He also informed their entire church community about his daughter's sinful behavior, effectively making family functions impossible for her. Jake, her supposed backup plan, turned out to be less reliable than she'd hoped. When she reached out to him after our breakup, he was initially enthusiastic, until he realized she actually wanted a relationship, not just flirtatious texts. He stopped responding to her messages within a week. Melissa was forced to downgrade her luxury apartment to a shared living situation with 2 roommates. She also had to trade in her leased BMW for a used Honda when the lease ended and her father refused to co-sign for a new one. As for me, I moved on. Changed my phone number, focused on work, eventually started dating someone who understands that relationships are about commitment, not contingency plans. It's been about 6 months now, and occasionally I still get messages from mutual friends passing along Melissa's demands for an apology, claiming I ruined her life. I simply remind them that I wasn't the one sending revealing photos to an ex while in a committed relationship. I wasn't the one who explained it away as normal behavior. And I certainly wasn't the one who told my partner they were just a placeholder until something better came along. I just showed her father exactly who she was. The consequences were entirely of her own making. Update. Wow, didn't expect this post to blow up like it did. Thanks for all the awards and comments. Seeing a lot of the same questions, so I'll address them here. 1. For those asking about legal issues with forwarding her photos, I checked with a lawyer friend afterward, and while it's a gray area, there were no explicit nudes involved, just revealing photos that she had already willingly sent to someone else. Plus, it was her father, not posting them publicly. Still, not something I'd recommend doing without consideration. 2. Yes, I really changed the locks that fast. I have a buddy who's a locksmith who owed me a favor. Called him while she was shopping for her fancy dinner outfit. He was there within an hour. 3. A lot of you are saying I should have confronted Jake too. Honestly, he didn't owe me any loyalty. He wasn't the one in a relationship with me. Melissa was. That's where my focus stayed. 4. For those wondering if I feel bad about getting her cut off financially, not really. She was 28 with a job that paid 6 figures. Her financial support from her parents was purely supplemental luxury money that she manipulated them into providing. She's doing fine financially, just not living the artificially inflated lifestyle she was accustomed to. 5. Several people have asked if she tried to get revenge. She did attempt to contact my boss with some made-up story about me having alcohol issues, but I'd already given my supervisor a heads up that my ex might try something like that. He ignored her email completely. 6. The most common question. Would I do it again? Honestly, probably not. It worked out in this case, but involving family and relationship drama is usually not the best move. That said, I don't regret it. Sometimes people need to face real consequences for their actions, not just walk away unscathed. 7. Last update on Melissa. Heard through the grapevine that she's now dating some guy from her church that her father introduced her to. Apparently, she's found her faith again. Good for her if it's genuine, but the timing seems conveniently aligned with getting her parents' financial support back. Lesson learned from all this: when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. And if they call you naive for expecting basic loyalty, they're telling you everything you need to know about their character.